Okay, hello, and welcome to the next episode of Getting There, conversations with school district administrators talking about how they are responding to the COVID crisis. My name is Kevin Hogan, and with me is Andrew Wallace. Andrew, how are you?
Doing well, Kevin. How you doing?
Good. I can see that you're actually kind of beating me on the COVID beard contest, huh?
I think it's maybe in volume, but I stopped plucking the grays. That was something I could have managed maybe 3 months ago, and now
Right.
it's just overcome me.
Well, let me give you a little intro to Andrew. Andrew, he's the technology director for South Portland Schools in Maine for about 14 years, 15 years. How long, Andrew?
16 years now.
16. Wow. Okay.
Yep,
And still a member of the State Educational Technology Directors Association?
I am. I'm the president of that organization until they realize that I'm term limited out, but they haven't
Oh,
figured that out yet.
fantastic. And then you were also on the faculty of the University of Maine's Graduate College of Education?
I am. Yeah, I
That's
teach instructional technology online.
fantastic, fantastic. And a longtime advisor for me and for the work that I've done in education technology, and have always appreciated your advice and consent, which is why you were number 2 on the interview list
Awesome.
for Getting There. Let's get started. I mean, it's the unfortunately the only question you can start off any interview with these days. But how has the district been doing in terms of the transition into remote learning?
Yeah, it feels almost like it was just yesterday when we got the news that we would not be coming back after a weekend of sort of uncertainty. Um, and like many districts, we felt good about the amount of devices we had out to our families, but we really had a sort of a mad dash to get all of our families connected. Being connected was our number one sort of goal to start. So understanding that maybe we weren't fully prepared or even half prepared to teach in this environment, what we needed to do was make sure we were really connected. So my team spent the first probably 3 weeks working pretty hard, pretty diligently to get as many families as we could connected with at least one device and access to the internet, so we could engage with them and keep them as engaged as possible in a time where we didn't really know what was going to happen.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your district. When I think Maine, I think rural, but you're also South Portland, so you have a bit of an urban rural
Yeah,
mix.
so we're definitely an urban district. Only we're the 4th largest school district, but geographically we are the most densely populated city in the state. So we're very tight. It's only 8 to 9 square miles, I think, where all of our residents live.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is, you got internet pretty much floating around in the air all the time. You don't have to go far to get connected to an open Wi-Fi spot. And so we found ourselves at around, right off the bat, 95, 97% connected.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But in terms of your device strategy, you're also saying that most kids already had one, or what was the status there? Maine has always been progressive with the one-to-one devices, right?
Yeah, we've been doing one-to-one in Maine since 2003 at a couple grade levels. And most school districts in Maine expanded it upward from grades 7 through 12. And then a lot of them are slowly creeping down to the elementary schools. So in my district, we've been one-to-one with iPads grades 6 through 12 since the iPad came out. We were one of the first iPad one-to-one schools. And then we have been backfilling with Chromebooks that stay in the classroom. So we felt pretty good. We had a sort of a philosophy that we really weren't doing one-to-one at grades pre-K to 2. We just weren't sure that was educationally appropriate. But I can assure you we are revisiting our thinking around that now, just out of necessity, and also just because we are seeing the ability of people to stay engaged and kids to safely and responsibly use technology no matter what their ages. So that's
Yeah.
been kind of a eye-opening and maybe has changed the way I will approach our youngest students with technology.
Now, very much like I've been talking with folks saying that they were all set up for e-learning days for snow days, or maybe a couple days, but not a couple weeks or a couple months. And I guess it's the same with device management as well, right? Talk a little bit about how you are working to maintain devices and kind of the nitty-gritty IT aspects of the setup.
Yeah, at first we started out like a lot of people. We set up tables and we we had people come in and try to like keep our social distance, and we tried to troubleshoot. And what we realized is that it just wasn't working out for any of us. We were maybe taking too much of a risk, interacting with too much of the public, or them interacting with us, because we were interfacing with lots of people in the very beginning before we fully understood the virus. Also trying to schedule people to come in, as many of my staff members stayed home with their families, or because of, legitimate health concerns. I mean, just because we were in such a small space, we didn't want to be fully staffed physically. What we realized was we couldn't just be waiting around for people to come see us. And so we took a two-pronged approach. One is we engaged our transportation office to help us deliver the devices to the families, or the hotspots to the families that needed them. What we realized is, and I'm driving around in the neighborhood in a city I know well, I grew up there, and I still don't know all the streets. And you're calling people on the phone and they don't recognize my number because it's my cell phone. And we just spent a lot of time waiting for people to give them things, or they weren't home. So what we did was we said, well, who's really good at this sort of stuff? And we looked at our transportation department, who has a whole dispatch office, right? And they drive around in school buses, and everybody trusts the school bus. They don't trust my crummy little sedan, right? Driving into their parking lot.
Right.
Not that I look shady or anything, but I got a big beard. I'm intimidating. But in any event, the bus would be driving into a neighborhood. The dispatch would call ahead to the family and say, hey, can we drop this off? We would leave it out on their front yard or on their porch, and, again, keep that social distancing, and families could get the technology they needed. So that was a way that, I thought was great, as the transportation folks were not as busy because they're not driving kids around. We had a goal of keeping as many of our employees fully employed as possible. And I think we saw 100% of that happen, because we found creative ways to get people to work.
Yeah.
Another thing we did, I was at Whole Foods, and I was looking at the Amazon lockers, and I was like, man, maybe that is a way we could do things, right? So we found these old gym lockers, and we bolted them to the wall outside of my office. And we have a camera there that I don't even know if it works, but it's a deterrent anyway.
Yeah.
And what we did was we bought combination locks. And if someone needed a new device, or they wanted to swap a device, we didn't spend all this time trying to troubleshoot over the phone, because it's just not effective. And we didn't want to be interfacing with people so much that we would just, you want a new iPad, we'll put an iPad in locker S, and this is a combination, and come and get it whatever you want, which was really cool, because, some of our families work third shift. Some of our families have a hard time, or, with translation and talking with us, because we have, I think, 42 languages spoken in our district.
Wow.
But, when you show someone a video of how to go to a locker and put in a combination and get that device out, it's a lot more visual, and it seems to be working really well.
That's fantastic. That's really kind of an innovative approach to it.
Yeah, actually, the next step too, though, I was talking to my friend Kyle Berger, who's a CTO down in Grapevine, Texas, down near Dallas. And what they've actually done, which is interesting, is they've extended it to the next level, where they actually are putting the school lockers in grocery stores. So families have less places to go. They can do all that sort of when they leave the house, go grab their groceries, grab the technology. I know other people are distributing books and paper materials that way as well. Those folks who maybe have a more widespread problem with kids connecting to the web, or fewer devices at home. So I can see that sort of delivery method growing more and more. So those are two of the ways that we've been reaching out to folks.
And is that something that you see in the near term and in the long term, is actually changing that strategy permanently? Or is this something that is still just kind of like in this time? I mean, is that something that or you've even considered yet?
Well, actually, an interesting byproduct of this is that, we're not spending a lot of time. Someone calls and says, hey, I've got this problem with my computer and it's sluggish, and can you fix this or that? We're actually finding that we're saying, you know what, we're going to do a device swap, and here's a step-by-step guide, and here's a video on how to back everything up to the cloud.
Yeah.
So we're actually finding it is helping us move towards teachers taking responsibility for their own material, and backing up their own data. And swapping out a device used to be something that people would dread, because, I'm the same way. This is not my own example. I dread getting a new laptop, because I'm going to move all my old stuff over and worry about what I'm going to be missing. But people are becoming much more independent in how they maintain their devices. And so that's been an interesting byproduct. I think we'll keep doing it. It certainly cuts down on the amount of time fixing devices. We just wipe them out, clean them off, give them a few days to sit there when we don't touch them, and then we can give them out to the next teacher, and they log into the cloud, whether it's iCloud or Google Drive, and they get all their stuff right back.
Yeah.
Pretty seamless.
Give us a little breakdown of the gear that you're using in terms of the cloud and your software and hardware.
Absolutely. So we had previously been using Outlook for email, and we've been using network drives. So teachers had to log into specific drives, shared folders, and things of that nature before we started making this move to the cloud. We embraced Google long ago, but we never did Gmail until the cost of moving to the cloud on Microsoft was going to be a bit more. That sort of impelled us to really embrace the Gmail infrastructure and ecosystem. So we've been doing Gmail and Google Drive. We haven't bought servers and I can't remember how long. Teachers are just so much more independent in how they do it. And, they can collaborate so much better with students too. So the iterative process of documents back and forth, the feedback loops are just so much more enhanced when we start using cloud-based tools.
Yeah.
And teachers, selfishly, one of the silliest things people, never did was to give them laptops. Teachers will, they just want to connect when it's good for them.
Sure.
And they're so much more productive. And who am I to say you need to be connected to my school network to be productive?
Right.
And they're just connecting with kids all the time.
Yeah.
Now more so than ever. And so I'm glad that we have been doing cloud-based infrastructure for a while now, because it's not quite so jarring. I'm hearing of some colleagues where, they're very network specific. Kids have to physically go to the parking lot to get the update to their latest tools.
Right.
And since we've embraced those sort of cloud-based tools, that's not a problem for us.
Yeah.
And we use iPads and Chromebooks. And our Chromebooks are all convertible Chromebooks, where the kids can use their finger or they can type. And we found those to be successful and a great bridge to switching over to iPad.
Right.
As they get older.
You were mentioning the teachers. In a lot of the coverage that I've been following and writing about, was talking about social emotional learning when it comes to the students, and about all the burdens and students and parents, right? I mean, the parents are now into the equation, but not as much about faculty, who are also happen to be the parents and everything else. But in terms of keeping connection and supporting the faculty, have you had any experiences or any suggestions on that front?
Yeah, it was. Some of our administrators are really dialed into this, and it's wonderful. I've seen some of our social workers are doing online yoga classes for kids and for teachers. We did a couple Instagram accounts where people are posting funny pictures or just what made their day, and they're getting a lot of hits there.
Yeah.
And we did, our athletic director and some of our administrators pulled off a digital spirit week, because that was something that was going to be coming up. Like a tradition in our district that people really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see those things, I mean, it's
Absolutely.
really, it's brutal. And I feel so terrible for, those high school seniors, but like you said, more so, my own son's kindergarten teacher is retiring this year. And I can't even imagine, it's just sad, that your career ends this way. And I just hope we're really cognizant of how this impacts our teachers. And I know it does. And we're just going to be really kind to all these people. And I hope we honor them and recognize them as best we can, because this is not the way you want to end your career, sadly. No. But what's amazing is, like, I'm just seeing, including my son's own teacher, people just go into the bell, and they're just learning new things. And it is amazing. Teachers love a challenge, and they are stepping up and they're learning new things constantly. So I'm just really impressed with that.
How's your pivot now? I mean, what as you look towards the fall, what's the temperature there in Maine in terms of hybrid? Are we all remote, or have you been able to take any first steps in that direction?
Yes, we're in that process right now. We're phrasing things as red, green or yellow. So stoplight type situation. Green is school as usual, right? With, some basic, whenever I don't know what we're gonna do, but like temperature checks or just spacing might be different, or bag lunch instead of a la carte, and
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of stuff. So green is good, and we all know how to do green.
Right.
And then there's red, which is CDC, our government, our state says stay home. And then there's yellow, right? Yellow is an intriguing prospect, and we're batting around some ideas. I'm not at liberty to say exactly, because there's no firm plans yet.
Yeah.
But I know some districts are talking about alternating days. Other districts are talking about, maybe those kids that are most likely to succeed independently, maybe they go to some digital learning. This is not the stance of my district. I got to be very clear, but
Sure.
it's my belief that, especially as someone who's an online, professor, so to speak, that they're all gonna encounter online learning, online classes, and so in a way, some of this is going to be okay for our older kids,
Yeah.
and we'll have some benefits, right? And they have those skills to independently learn and self-regulate, and the executive functioning skills, while not perfect in most teenagers, are certainly better than my 8-year-olds.
Right.
So, as the economy starts up again too, these parents got to get back to work. I don't know. I would love to see a model in which those who are least benefiting from direct instruction maybe are the ones that we see less often. In an
Yep.
ideal world, we can see them all, and that's what I'm hoping and praying for. But at the same time, we've got to start preparing for what the fall might be.
Yep.
I
Let
mean,
me.
another thing we're doing too is we just tomorrow will publish an online and a synchronous and asynchronous 10-hour course for all of our teachers. So all of our teachers and all of our administrators will take this course, which is based around designing for online learning. But the pillars of it, student agency, navigation, the role of teacher, those sorts of elements, assessment, those are critical, valuable teaching skills and instructional skills that we would want our teachers to have anyway. So I'm trying to figure out what are the great things we're doing now that we will retain as we go forward, regardless of what physical environment we're in, where we're learning from, where we're teaching from.
Right. Right. So yeah, that's a lead into my next question. It's like there are some takeaways from all this madness, right? I mean, this may be propelling education in a positive direction, as miserable as it is right now.
Yeah. And you think about folks who've been talking about, the flipped classroom model for a long time, right? I mean, now more than ever, when we get a chance to be with our students, we are going to cherish that time, right?
Yeah.
And yes, there's going to be a lot of relationship stuff that goes along with that. But the reality is we're going to really think about how do we get the most out of the time we are together?
Yeah.
How do we go deeper on the stuff that really requires me as an educator to be there with you? And
Yeah.
so I do think we're going to see more in-depth collaboration, project-based learning, experiential learning, and then the lecture stuff and the preloading, right? That stuff that we can more independently do that doesn't require a person with you. I'm just going to see a lot of that being sort of the homework, so to speak.
Right.
And so those champions of the flipped classroom, I mean, this is in many ways, going to be what really puts that over the top for them.
Yeah. How about the other 800-pound gorilla, of which there are dozens, in terms of assessment? Looking at the learning loss that's happened over these past couple of weeks, and how do you itemize that? How do you collect that? How do you look at that? And then you look at testing going forward. The CEO of ACT just resigned a couple days ago.
CEO of ACT resigned. California schools, all the California schools just announced, I think today, maybe that's why the ACT guy resigned, that they are going to develop their own test, and they're going to suspend the use of SAT, ACT, I believe. You might want to verify that. Fact check me on that, but I'm fairly certain that just came out today. Standardized tests pretty much were almost all canceled. Ours certainly was. Losing that data, that longitudinal data, whether you like standardized tests or not, is a blow. But I do see, I don't see it coming back necessarily the same way as before.
Yeah.
it's just too high stakes and too time bound and too specific, I think. So I see, an opportunity for other meaningful assessments that are maybe more doable throughout regular instruction. So maybe a child doesn't even know they're being assessed, right? As
Yeah.
they're doing their work, there's assessment happening. That can happen. It doesn't have to be a culminating event. And so, yeah, whether that industry was sort of reeling a little bit, because it's not a popular thing. I mean, I understand why it happens, but I think this is going to change things forever in how
Yeah.
we assess students. Although at the same time, you know, everyone's left behind, right? So we didn't cancel school just for us. So
That's right.
unfortunately, we're all left behind. I hope we continue to engage with kids more and more. I mean, for us, we decided to not collect the student devices back because we don't want to interrupt that learning. And so, for a lot of our students and a lot of our families, the device that we give them is their primary device at home. And we want them, they're thirsty. Nobody wants their kids to be left behind, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's so many great online resources. One of our teacher librarians, in conjunction with her colleagues, is making a website where teachers can go. I mean, sorry, rather, teachers, parents as teachers can
Yeah.
go to keep the kids engaged, to connect with some of the high quality resources that we provide, but also to engage with things like Khan Academy, other such resources
Right.
for people.
Right. Well, it's great. It sounds like you folks really have it together, and that's impressive. There's so many districts right now that are flailing, unfortunately, and hopefully, with conversations like these, we can help propel and share some best practices.
Yeah, well, it's we're always listening. I'm looking forward to seeing the other interviews and learning what we can.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna get through this. We're all gonna have great ideas, and we're all gonna go forward based on some of those great ideas. And like we all say, we're in this together.
Yep. That's it. Well, Andy, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You got it, Kevin. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks.